Alright, winter wrap-up. No one's getting a point. This is a pretty chill episode. Moving on. Spike calls Twilight mommy before correcting himself and saying that she isn't. Jokes aside, a question does arise in that who does Spike consider his mother? His non-existent dragon mother who birthed him, Twilight who hatched him but he'd already just said no, or maybe Celestia since she raised him and taught him magic? I don't think we ever get an answer to this question, and I'm kinda curious now. Twilight fulfills her exposition quota and tells us that it's winter wrap-up day, which is the first day of spring, which means we skipped winter. I mean, I just deduced in the first few episodes that it was summer with the summer in July reference, as well as Twilight literally stating it was summer when Fluttershy was, calling it spring cleaning in her house. So do the seasons revolve differently? And if that's the case, we literally skipped winter, and that's like 3 months of time we just lost. If they use the same calendar as us, which isn't really shown, that's ridiculous. Going by the fact that it was summer, that means their calendar would go summer, winter, spring, fall, instead of summer, fall, winter, spring. Or we also just skipped fall, which is an even larger amount of time lost. I have so many questions that will not be answered. And actually, as I was looking at the episodes coming up, we're gonna get a fall-based episode, so maybe it goes summer, winter, fall, spring? I don't know, I really don't. This might also just be happening out of order at this point now, which is kind of annoying that we don't have like a solid timeline, but oh well. As for what the winter wrap-up day is, it's when the ponies clean up winter. This follows, because after the Look Before You Sleep episode, where I talk about ponies controlling the weather. Remember that? However, this Spike brings up who cleans up winter, which is normally a fair question, but he expands on this by talking about how Canterlot magically changes the season instead of doing it manually, which Twilight drops the bombshell mistake of Ponyville was founded by Earth ponies, so for hundreds of years, they never used magic to clean up Ponyville. Can you guess what the mistake was? Granny Smith, who is Applejack's grandmother, if you don't know, is considered a founder of Ponyville, but we know her canon age to be, we don't know any pony's canon age, because they left it vague. We only know that Celestia is at least 1,000 years old because of how long Luna was imprisoned. She's also an all-powerful alicorn, so that's meaningless. But we do know that Granny Smith isn't magical in any way, so she shouldn't be able to live for centuries. But I also have no evidence to the contrary, and researching this is just flooded with headcanon and guesses from people. As for my own headcanon, it's just a mistake, because they didn't think that far ahead yet, and they thought her being a founder was cool and didn't remember the centuries line, which, while boring, is likely the correct answer. Leaving that massive tangent aside, Twilight demonstrates her foresight and organizational skills this episode to reinforce the main plot of the episode, which is Twilight not knowing where she belongs. So, this is your little foreshadowing of where she belongs. Also, I don't remember bringing it up, but why do they wear saddles? I joked about the bridle in episode 9, but saddles are for riders. I get it's like a cute way to do fashion for sentient horses, but I don't think saddles are ever used for when like a creature is riding a pony. Like Spike doesn't get one when he rides on Twilight's back, which he does a lot, and I try to think of an in-universe reason for why these types of things are the way they are, but I got nothing for this one. Outside of them being for fashion, which is the boring answer, because they're literally meant for functionality, so making them just pure fashion doesn't really make sense, because they still possess the functionality. I don't know. I'm thinking too much into it. I'm overanalyzing. Help. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Help. Twilight doesn't even end up wearing the saddle, galoshes, or scarf, so that entire opening was meaningless. I guess the animators didn't want the extra work, but that's bleh. Also, in the previous shot, when Twilight left too early, there was no snow to clean up. But now that it's later in the day, there is snow suddenly. Also Derpy 15. Oh, also, Mare has been released from captivity and is allowed to exist and do her job. Hooray. Weather team, plant team, animal team. Get all that? Good. It'll be on the test. Twilight's excitement for this episode comes from wanting to be a part of one team. We know from future episodes, and by observing her behavior in episode 1, that she dreams of being important and helpful. She even gets a whole song about it later on. Not in this episode, obviously, but very far down the line. I think like season 4 or 5. Golden Harvest was placed on the plant team, and Daisy too. Also, basically all of the Pegasi in the town are on the weather team for obvious reasons. The background animators do a pretty good job of assigning them, and I won't keep pointing them out unless there's a mess up, but keep your eye out yourself. Epic foreshadowing. Hey look, it's Bonbon 23. Wait, why is Bonbon on the weather team? I literally just said they did a good job. I'm not changing it even though it'd be easy. My statement, that is. I suppose she might be a spotter? Someone who helps the weather ponies with a ground view of things they might miss? Sure, let's go with that. Also, why is Golden Harvest now suddenly on the animal team? Daisy's still on the plant team and that tracks. Lyra 17. Rainbow Dash isn't the only one who has a meme face. Also, she isn't wearing a vest, so she's either not helping or I need to stop complimenting the animators. And I definitely need to stop because they literally just switched Golden Harvest and Daisy's vest from the previous scene. Both of my screenshots you'll see, they just flip-flop their vests. What the fuck's going on? Here we see the team leaders for the 3 different teams. Obviously, Rainbow Dash and Applejack lead the weather and plant teams, given their roles in the community. But we also see a common background pony, who is called Amethyst Star. I just haven't named them up to this point. She's leading the animal team instead of Fluttershy, likely because Fluttershy would be too nervous and wouldn't want to be in charge. Apparently Amethyst is also an organizer who probably gets put out of business by Twilight for a while before she upgrades her job. Not Amethyst before Twilight upgrades her job. You know what I mean. If you know, you know. And here's the main conflict of the episode. Twilight isn't sure where she fits into the teams, like I said. Given how prominent she's been in the community, I'm not sure why she feels this way. She seems to have a lot of ponies that think highly of her, even if she's not directly friends with them. Maybe this is sort of a parallel to Celestia, where Celestia gets along with so many different types of ponies, but doesn't really have any personal friends. Like, I guess it's like student like teacher, both Twilight and her have the same problems. Also, Daisy and Golden Harvest are now on the animal team together. What the fuck? I take back my praise about the background artists, because they just keep reusing the wrong assets for this one. Oh yeah, also Rarity's on the animal team. Given she has a cat that I don't think we've even seen yet, I suppose that tracks? She wouldn't like the ickiness of plants, and she can't do much about the weather without breaking the no magic rule, so yeah, alright. Oh hey, Golden Harvest and Daisy are on the plant team. Bruh. Also, Bonbon, were you not on the weather team? Celestia, help me. I'm going to be seeing this all fucking episode, huh? Well, I'll try not to focus too hard on it, but don't blame me if I do. Oh shit, here we go. It's time for the second song review! Also, Pinkie Pie is wearing a weather vest. Fuck me, it's everywhere. Also, it looks like the team captains, aka Rainbow Dash and Applejack and the other one, all have special armbands, which is a nice detail to denote. And those are kept consistent. I checked. Okay, I promise I will get to talking about the song in a minute, but I want to get all the vest continuity out of the way because it has consumed my very soul. Rarity, still on the animal team. And Fluttershy reveals that she is too, as expected. So I'm going to be doing the review for the song over the course of several points, because there's other stuff I want to get in between, such as more Lyras and Derpies and other people that show up. But for this first part, the most important thing is the song is a bop. It's very fun to listen to. The title is fine, as it's just the chorus and it's very literal in what the song does, and the song itself also serves purposes. Two of them. It both explains the winter wrap-up process, as well as explaining Twilight's concerns and insecurities involving the whole project. Starting with the Pegasi, they bring the southern birds home, clear the skies, and let the sun shine in to help melt the snow. The review will continue a couple points down the line. Derpy 16. Lyra 18. Long Bonbon 24. Cheerily has been on the plant team this entire song, but is now on the animal team. I know I said I'd stop, but this is just my life now. It's just vest continuity. Alright, I'll stop with the vests. The animal team's job is said to be waking up the hibernating animals and then helping them forage for food, while also welcoming home the southern birds that the Pegasi grabbed. For the plant team, it's clearing the fields and planting new crops, which is pretty expected and standard, nothing very surprising about that. In a previous episode, don't remember which one, I mentioned the apples being the primary land ponies in charge, as well as Fluttershy for animals. What with the whole Everfree Forest reveals, so it was probably the Sakura episode where I talked about this. I think this episode tries to show that others are involved, but I still argue that those two are the primary cares for those things. Okay, yeah, they just copy and pasted fucking everyone, hence why I'm seeing them on both teams. But they also usually kept the pairs off of the same screen, so now it's less of a continuity error, and more of them just being lazy. They have so many templates that they could use. We can just say they're clones or twins, I guess, but that's fucking nonsense, and now I'm just sad. Alright, let's finish the actual song review. The song itself, like I said, is a bop. I recommend listening to it since I can't play it for you. The explanation and overview it gives helps get across the process of winter wrap-up to the viewer very well. And it helps establish Twilight's worry, now that I know what all the groups do, how will I be able to help without my magic? She is so strongly attached to her magic that she sees it as part of her very being, which is something that I did mention during Bridal Gossip with the poison joke. So as for the messaging, effectiveness, and catchiness, aka how good the actual song is, it gets great marks in everything, with maybe messaging being the lowest since it's mostly an exposition song and doesn't have much of a core message behind it other than I want to fit in and help. If that's good enough for you, great, but that's where I will dock it points. All in all, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. Very fun song that accomplishes what it needs to without overstaying its welcome or boring you. Twilight starts by trying to help the Pegasi weather team, before Rainbow reminds her of her lack of wings and, Pegasi magic, which makes my annoyance at those earth ponies earlier wearing the weather vests all the more justified. Her eagerness is starting to dwindle and Twilight is beginning her descent into her sorrowful pit. The next portion of the episode will be her slowly reasoning out that she's not helpful or useful to any pony. And I also didn't mention this in the song, but Pinkie Pie's job is to cut up the lake ice so it melts faster, which explains how a weather pony can be an earth pony, because they're on the same team. Spike tries to write himself out of the story by napping. Sorry, bud, not gonna work that easily. Twilight also reinforces her desire to do her part, which, while probably not intentional, is a reference to a later song, the same song I mentioned earlier, involving Twilight's desire for more in her life, a larger sense of purpose. Though determined, the cracks are forming in Twilight's determined exterior. Something else that I didn't mention during the song was that the animal team has Rarity making new nests for birds instead of the birds needing to make their own. And while the ponies are trying to be nice here, I feel like the animals will all slowly become domesticated, creating a drop in the population as they become more reliant on ponies. And if something were to happen to them, them, or their magic, hint hint, then they would kind of be screwed. I don't think this happens or is ever touched upon, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions, as is the road to devolution. Twilight tries to help and has no skill with her hooves at something as meticulous as weaving. Rarity, finally embracing her core trait that she showed very early on, tries to cheer Twilight up and tell her that she did fine, but then backtracks and takes over and changes it to her own liking. Almost got there. Twilight, even more dejected, leaves to meet with Pinkie Pie. So yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is what Earth ponies on the weather team might do if they actually are on the team and it's not just a fucking issue for the vesting. They will help the ice melt on the ground by slicing it up with skates. A little niche, but hey, at least it's a job for them to do. Twilight expresses a desire to help as Pinkie is incredibly skilled and makes it look easy. I'm sure we all know where this is going. Yep, Twilight has no dexterity, no agility, nor balance. Though if I remember correctly, she gets better by season 2 or 3. She does a little bit more acrobatic stuff. Before Pinkie sends Twilight to Fluttershy, she lies to make Twilight feel better, but also admits to the lie when pressed. She only did it to make Twilight feel better. We can take this as wholesome, or as Pinkie lied to make Twilight happy to make herself happy. Given that this is season 1 Pinkie, we're gonna go with wholesome. We have plenty of other time for the other Pinkie. Fluttershy gives a wake-up speech to the animals, but she also has a bell in her mouth. Normally the voice actors sound like they have something in their mouth when trying to do their lines for the scenarios, but this one her diction was perfect. It's also immediately followed by a shot that shows she doesn't have the bell anymore. And here we see it tucked under her wing, which I guess explains why it went missing. You win this one, show. In fact, we're about to see, literally, her entire process, which means it all worked perfectly, and I'm a fucking fool. A fool! Fluttershy explains hibernation to Spike, which tracks considering earlier we learned about Canterlot using magic for seasonal changes, so he wouldn't know about hibernation. Continuity plus, good job. Twilight, after claiming she's good with animals, immediately gets terrorized by snakes, spooked by bats, pricked by bees, and finally sprayed by skunks. Fluttershy doesn't actually even say anything about this. Twilight just leaves, dejected, which is sad for her, but funny that Fluttershy just said, nah, I'm not gonna comment. She's been through enough. While Spike helps get rid of the skunk smell, they have an argument about Spike telling Twilight to solve the winter wrap-up the right way, with her magic. But Twilight explains that she needs to do it the traditional way, even if it kills her, which is a rare word to hear in a kid's show. She literally uses the word kill. Regardless, the tradition versus progression argument is done in fiction a lot, to varying degrees. It's not going to be a major discussion point for this episode, but Twilight, at least at this point, prefers to do things the way her new home does it, instead of the way her old home does it, which I would say is the proper way to respect a culture when relocating. Only stallions are plowing the snow, and we know Applejack is perfectly capable of doing it too. It's a little weird that it chooses to standardize the roles here and not have the mayor's help. Actually, no, now that I'm thinking about it, the mayors are doing it in different fields, because we saw Golden Harvest and Daisy's plant clones doing some plowing earlier in the song. So that's probably what it is. Due to the seeds planted in Twilight's head by Spike, she goes against her own thoughts and feelings and uses a come-to-life spell, okay, whatever the fuck that means, on the plow to help the fields, after failing to move the plow normally. Not surprising, considering only Earth ponies should have the enhanced strength for these sort of things. Unicorns don't seem to have any roles for them, like the others for Winter Wrap-Up, since they can't use their magic. It's a little unfair, but it is an Earth pony-founded town, so it kinda tracks. Twilight just needs to practice things without magic and she'd be better off. It's not a lesson that this episode will teach, but it is a common one when teaching people things in magic stories. That being that magic shouldn't be used to solve everything, is my point. Now, because Applejack has eyeballs, she immediately notices that Twilight is too strong for a quote-unquote little pony, which is a less racially charged way to say unicorn, I suppose. But that's actually, like, any non-Earth pony doing this kind of work would be strange. Twilight's not thinking clearly thanks to her insecurity towards being a burden to others, but this is kind of obvious. After ruining everything with her magic going haywire, Applejack gets rightfully upset, and we see some true regret come from Twilight. Maybe the most emotion we've gotten from her in a while, if just in general. She's usually panicked or agitated in most cases, but we get some straight up sorrow. She runs off crying, and Applejack seems to feel bad for Twilight, much different from Ticketmaster, where she didn't care about an obviously upset Twilight. While trying and failing to cheer up Twilight, Spike makes a "you're welcome, sister" type of joke. So this probably tells us that he thinks of Twilight as sort of an older sister, I guess? Which makes sense given how they treat each other. She cares and nags, he teases and complains. That's pretty tropey, yeah, understandable. Here we see all three teams arguing over the process of clearing the trees. Mayor appears and complains that this arguing is why they were late the last 3 years, showing that she's honestly not very good at her job of overseeing the whole winter wrap-up thing. She also expected her speech she gave at the beginning to be motivating enough for everyone to just be better, which also shows that she's not good at her normal job either. I guess we know why she disappears from the foreground later, which, hearing all the arguing, gives Twilight an idea. Mayor explains how everyone fucked up their jobs this year, which shows that while everyone is better than Twilight at the physical portion of the tasks, they're completely inept at the mental side. Pinkie cut the ice too large, Rarity's perfectionism mechanism means there's only one bird's nest completed, and the clouds are still in the sky, and there's still icicles in the trees. Basically, everyone failed at their job except for Fluttershy. Way to go, Fluttershy. It's moments like these that make me wonder how Mayor Mayor still has a job. Apparently Derpy, referred to as Ditzy, but I will not be doing so, flew north instead of south to get the birds, which Rainbow complains she didn't learn her lesson from last year flying west. It finally happened. We got her name dropped, and her tendencies shown. She was honestly pretty competent up to this point in the background, so it's a little out of nowhere, but hey, we got to finally hear about Derpy. Also, Lyra 19. I could count all of them once because we know they're all helping with the winter wrap-up, but that's boring, so I'm going to do it for different settings and locations. When I say all of them, I mean all of the backgrounds, ponies I'm keeping track of, the 3 major ones. Twilight uses her magic to horrifically squeeze a bird so hard it screams, to get everyone's attention. A little morbid, but she did apologize and the bird seemed fine with it, so alright. Twilight announces that they need organization and that she is just the pony to do it. And everyone seems totally down, meaning that they trust Twilight enough to agree. Given how they've reacted to Twilight in the past, that kind of tracks. Because of the trust they've seen Celestia have in her, they probably also got some more trust in her, which is good to see. Plus, she saved the entire city already, twice. Lyra, Twinkleshine, and Amethyst, the one from earlier this episode that I mentioned, are now helping Rarity. Twilight's Canterlot friends appear in Ponyville a lot, but they do live in Canterlot, so it's kind of sweet that they came down here to help out for Winter Wrap-Up. I haven't been pointing them out, but they've appeared in the episode, helping. The rest of the episode is just a montage of Twilight improving efficiency, so there's not a lot to talk about, but the Pegasi's cloud clearing tornado is pretty cool. Like I said before in a previous episode, large tornadoes are just used a weird amount for different things. It's apparently a very versatile tool for the Pegasi. So Derpy, Lyra, and Bonbon all appear one more time in this montage at the end, bringing us up to Derpy 17, Lyra 20, and Bonbon 25. Lyra was helping Rarity in the beginning, Bonbon is here with Spike helping the plant ponies, and Derpy shows up later, and we'll cover that in a second. Okay, so apparently Ditzy is actually just Derpy, but with miscolored hair. Yeah, okay, I'm still counting this as Derpy since that's her cutie mark, and we can assume she accidentally spilled hair dye on herself, because that's something she would do. We can also just say that Derpy and Ditzy are 2 different characters, and if you want that to be the case, then you can just consider my count for Derpy 1 lower. The mayor thanks Twilight for organizing everything, even though Amethyst is also an organizer by trade, so guess she just sucks at her job. Everyone is now thankful for Twilight's help, and she secures a spot for herself in the winter wrap-up. Also, since I'm supposed to overanalyze everything, but I'm also lazy, were all of the animals that Fluttershy woke up actually hibernation animals? I'm gonna go with yes because I don't want to look it up, and now if you'll excuse me, I might just go look it up. And the consensus is no. The literal first animals we see them waking up are mice, and mice do not hibernate in the winter. Instead, they look for additional shelter and food. Similarly, we see them wake up rabbits, who also do not hibernate and remain active during the winter, they do spend more time in their burrows to stay warm, but they also go out just to forage. Ferrets do something similar to hibernation, but it's not classified as hibernation by nature people, so I'm gonna say no as well. And lastly, we see Twilight get scared by the snakes, if you remember, and snakes also don't hibernate. They do enter into like a slower state where they don't eat, but they still don't count it as hibernation, so nope, it's called brumation instead. And we also see porcupines, which also don't hibernate. They remain active foraging for food. And the last animals we see, which are the skunks, also not technically hibernation. They also enter into a low energies type state. So yeah, the majority of the animals we see actually don't hibernate. Very funny. Oh right, they also show us squirrels, which also don't hibernate. So the only things that do hibernate, I think, are the bats and the hedgehogs that they showed us. Twilight gets a blinged out custom vest and becomes a member of every team. And while the vest nightmare might be over, we got a cool vest out of it, so I guess, something good came out of it. Twilight's letter to Celestia is pretty simple. She was super happy to be a part of the winter wrap-up, and everyone has a special talent or way they can help. All you need is the patience and friends to help you find it. As well as proving the point I made in an earlier episode, I want to say look before you sleep, but I don't remember exactly, where the whole point of the show is, with good friends and teamwork you can accomplish anything, which I claimed was the show's message, but unicorns being OP kind of ruined it in some cases. Here, they literally nerfed unicorns to not use magic to get the point across, which kind of shows the weakness that their argument holds in this universe. Either way, it's still a sweet message for an episode I genuinely enjoy. This is like the first episode I think I've genuinely enjoyed in a review. Most of the other ones I'm pretty neutral towards, or negative even, and I've gained new appreciation for them through the series. So we're almost halfway through the first season. We're getting close. We got 2 more episodes and we're halfway. Alright, so that was Winter Wrap Up. This episode is my first that I just like. I know I just said that, but I like this episode. The song is a bop and the whole story is just fun. There's nothing super deep or emotional about it. It's just a good time. I guess the emotional part is Twilight being sad and crying for the first time, but it's not lingered on. It's not treated as a major point of the episode. It's more of I'm sad, I'm gonna go hide in a bush, and then we'll progress the plot forward by making people need me for something, which is her organizational skills. All in all, it's just a fun episode. It's getting, I think, the highest rating so far of an 8 out of 10. They don't do anything horrible. All of them are mostly in character, with only Rarity having a sort of out of character moment, which again, it's not even that big of one. It's just, she still is trying to be nice and helpful. She just didn't realize she was being hurtful after the fact. It wasn't like an intentional dig, whereas it is in some other episodes. Regardless, yeah, I like this episode. I don't remember when the next episode I really enjoy comes, but when we get there, we'll get there.